Let me start with a story. My aunt had a brain aneurysm, and we all went to the hospital while she's in this emergency surgery, and we're sitting in the ICU waiting room. And while we're in this room, we're waiting to hear how the surgery went. The only other people that were in this room with us was a father and two kids. They're probably, 8 years old, 5 years old. And these two kids were absolute maniacs. They were jumping from the couch to the chair. They had knocked over the lamp. One of the people in our party was sitting there reading a magazine. Kid comes over, just slaps the magazine out of their hand. It was just ridiculous. And his father was doing nothing about it. So finally, my uncle went over to him and said, "Excuse me, sir, could you say something to your kids? Because this isn't exactly the best place for that behavior." And the father had his head in his hands kind of like this, and he looks up and he says, "You're right. I should say something to them. I just don't know how to tell them they just lost their mother." So what you experienced is a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is we thought we knew something, and then we find out, hey, there's another side to this whole story, right? And this story about this hospital thing, I want you to think about that when I go through some of the ideas that I have today, because a lot of us come from the trades and we worked for somebody else and we saw the way they ran their business and we said, oh, well, that's, I guess, how businesses are run. But you left them for a reason to start your own. And I want you to think maybe there's another way to think about building a business or running a business. And I'm going to talk about my journey and some things that I learned from making way too many mistakes along the way. Real quick about me, certifications. Two things that I'm proud of is I won the Microsoft Visionary Award in 2015 with 13 companies. I'm on stage with Delta Airlines, Barclays Financial, Trek Bicycle, Pandora Jewelry, Little Old Kelly Roofing. It was really an amazing honor. And then in 2019, I won Roofing Contractor of the Year. So really neat to be recognized by your peers, top of the industry. So that together with $5 will get me a Happy Meal at McDonald's. It means nothing, but I'm proud of it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. As I'm traveling around the country now in retirement, I retired 2 years ago after selling my business, as you heard, and I get the opportunity to speak in front of contractors. This year alone, I've already spoken in front of about 1,200 contractors. And so what I'm hearing from contractors are things that I'm a little nervous about, because I'm fearful that if this trend continues, we're gonna have a lot of businesses going out of business. And what I've learned talking to contractors, listening to their stories, helping them through these things, is there's two main reasons why businesses fail. The first reason is we have an issue with financial management. We don't know our numbers. Number two is we tend to grow too fast. And I would argue that growing too fast is actually part of the number one reason. We get to the point where we don't know our numbers, we're growing, we think we're doing well, we go on gut instinct, and we're making decisions out of emotion rather than off of facts. And I want you to think about it in a different way, and maybe there's a better, sustainable, more profitable way to basically grow a business. Michael Gerber said in the E-Myth, and then a second book, the E-Myth Revisited, he said that most people go into business because somebody in their family tells them, hey, you're working your butt off, you're making somebody else a lot of money, why don't you go into business for yourself? You'll have more time, more freedom, you'll have more opportunities, more security, and all that good stuff. And it's not until they're in business that they realize they have less time, less freedom, less security, and less money. And a lot of people just laughed. I love that, because we know that to be true. We're always on call. And here's why. Michael Gerber says, we're really good at whatever trade we're in. Right? Roofing, for instance. But very often, there is no university that teaches you how to run a roofing company or a painting company or an HVAC company. And so we're not great at the business side of the business. So let's talk about how to grow a company. In what I have a 7-hour training I call Operational Excellence. These are the 3 chapters to it. I'm going to give you a little bit of the highlights of each one of those today. Let's talk about lean growth. In every business, we have 3 main sectors. We've got sales, which I call smarketing, because I think there should be no division between sales and marketing. I think they should be the same. I'm sick of getting to the end of the year and doing this. The marketing department is saying, I brought in tons of leads, you can't sell. Salesmen are saying, those leads sucked. We couldn't close any of them, right? So I said, you know what? Smarketing. And by the way, I didn't make this up. You know who invented this? Satya Nadella. Who's Satya Nadella? He's the CEO of Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world. They had the same problem, so you're not alone. And so I stole that term from them, and we now combine that. Our director of sales is responsible for our marketing in the company, and so we have smarketing. You also have some form of production, right? There's an operations team that's getting the work done in the field, and then you have administration, think accounting, finance, any type of asset management, and then of course HR, the employee functions of the company. And so if this was your organization, whatever size you happen to be, and whatever metric you use to track the size of your organization, let's say, for instance, you're a $5 million a year company or $10 million a year company, or you have a 20% EBITDA or 15% EBITDA, this is the size of your company. And what happens is when you've got good people in each one of those divisions, you have decent processes, that business will turn. Your customers will be taken care of, your jobs will be done right, you collect the final payment, you move on to the next one, things are humming along. Now, how do you grow that? Let me tell you what was happening. When I got acquired by private equity, I go from running a roofing company to now go buying roofing companies and then folding them into our organization, which was actually the hardest part. Buying was easy. Folding them in was the tough part. And basically, the PE firm comes to me and says, Ken, here's $1 million. I'm being facetious. I basically had whatever kind of money I needed. Go blow up that company that we just bought. Bring them to the next level. So, like anyone would think, in order to get bigger, you need sales. So imagine I put $1 million into this company and I put it into smarketing, and all of a sudden I got a ton of leads coming in. Let me tell you a real world situation. In 2017, Hurricane Irma hit my backyard. In the first 30 days, I had 19,200 requests for an estimate. We're used to handling about 150 a week. Okay, put that into perspective. So you want to talk about blowing up? This is what happened. And this is what happens when we focus on marketing and sales only in our organization. We had plenty of leads. That wasn't an issue. I didn't have the salesman to run it. And then I convinced them, run 24/7. We're going to take advantage of this opportunity. Sell as much as you can. I didn't have the operations teams to do it. But luckily, for whatever reason, Texas breeds subcrews. So subcrews come rolling into town from Texas and say, hey, we can put those roofs on. Great. So I hired these guys. I'm going to try to grow and expand this company. I didn't have the team to manage them. They started putting on crappy roofs. And then I couldn't collect. I couldn't pay my bills. Couldn't make payroll. So I would argue from experience that putting a bunch of money in sales and marketing is not the way to grow a company. I got a different way of thinking about it. Instead, I would love for you to think about growing each one of those individual segments over a 90-day period. And I want you to pick one thing. And this is the hard part. This sounds easy. It's not. It's simple. It's not easy. Because discipline is hard. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about smarketing, and I want you to pick one area of improvement, the lowest hanging fruit that you can come up with. You and your team, you get together and you say, what's the one thing that's going to cost us the least amount of money that we can get done in the next 90 days, and if implemented, is going to make the biggest difference? And then I want you to go to your operations or production team and do the same thing. And then finish it off in administration. Just incremental improvements. Now here's the dichotomy. You're like, Ken, I have hundreds of things that I can fix in my business. Yes, put them on the parking lot. Right now, this quarter, we're only focusing on one per division. That's it. When you get more advanced than this and you get a bigger team, maybe you can delegate and do 2 or 3, but each person only has one thing to work on. What happens is we end up going from this to this every 90 days. And the company continues to be successful. You don't have any misses. Customers' calls are answered. You're able to get an estimator out there in a reasonable amount of time. Your backlog is under control. You're collecting. Cash flow is good. Everything is running smoothly. You're just a better organization every 90 days. Simple way to think about it. Now, along this growth, you are going to hit walls. Walls, plateaus, ceilings, whatever analogy you want to call them. And what I've found is, at least in the roofing industry, and this probably translates to the other trades as well, this is basically the main hurdles that you have to get through. The first one is, at $1 million, we are the center of the wheel. And I love being at this level. This is the most profitable you will ever be. and you will have the highest customer satisfaction. Because when the call comes in or you go out and you door knock, you get the lead, you're the one that's running the estimate. Whatever promises were made, you made them. You don't have to pass that on to somebody else and hope that they follow through with it. You remember. And then you go and you order the materials, you know it's right. You're there with the team that's doing the work, you correct any issues, and if the customer's got a complaint, you pounce right on it, so when you are finished with the work, the customer's happy to pay. You walk away with the cash, you pay your bills. It is a great place to be. But you are the center of the wheel, so if you step out of the business for whatever reason, the business doesn't continue. So we get a little bit of success, we want to grow. Here's what happens. First thing we have to do is start hiring people because we can't be everywhere at once. And that happens somewhere around the $1 to $3 million level, depending on how dynamic an individual is and how much they're capable of handling. We usually hire somebody in the office to help us with bookwork and phones, and then we want to find a salesperson. I think salesperson is the right place to go. I'd hold on to operations for a little bit longer as you're growing. What happens is you realize now you have to depend on people. And people means I'm going to take what I know worked for me, what allowed me to grow this business to the level that it was at, and now I have to transfer that knowledge to somebody else. And I have to depend on them doing what I did. Then you eventually get to the point where you run around the company and then you get somebody in operations and so forth. Your success gets you to the point where now you're closer to that $10 million a year level. And now you have to depend on processes. Because now you need 2 people in each position. I can't just do it with 1 sales rep. I have to have 2. And it's important to make sure that when those reps go into the homes, even though they're 2 different homes, 2 different customers, they're following the same system. So now I need a good process. Hence why everyone is here right now. Great sales system. And we're going to find a way to hold them accountable. That's the other end of the process. KPIs, keeping people informed, is the way I like to think about it because I want people to self-manage. And then when you get past that level, you realize that growing a business bigger and bigger actually means growing a business smaller. And what I mean by that is when you get too big, all of a sudden things kind of go off the rails. My classic example is we had a service division. It was no big deal. We brought in some shop drop materials. Everything that came out of this area, in the fenced-in area in the shop, went to repairs, and I just expensed it to roof repairs. That was great when it was just 1 crew. When we got up to 65, 70 service techs, and that weekly repair drop was $350,000 a week, all of a sudden, we started seeing profit drop. Was it really profit drop? We put Samsara systems in our trucks. We had GPS and cameras, and we started realizing one of our employees, one of our team leaders, was stopping by his house before coming back to the shop at night. So I hired a private investigator, sat at his house on a Saturday, and what did I see? I see my competitors roll up in front of his house, and he's taking materials out from the back of the fence, and he's selling the materials that he had been stealing from me. I didn't have a BOM, bill of materials, for the jobs, and I didn't have a purchase order system to track the materials that were coming out of the cage. I was losing money. I was funding the underground mafia. So as the company gets bigger, you have to get smaller, tighter, more processes, more controls. The bureaucracy. But it's important. If you can do it efficiently, it doesn't slow down production. I'll tell you a story. My son and I, we were part of a missions organization called Hope Contain. We were taking shipping containers and turning them into homes. And we were doing a build in Haiti. My son and I flew a plane down there, and we got there before the people that were coming in from the States were flying in commercially. This was right after the earthquake, 2012. 285,000 people lost their life in about 8 hours. It was a horrific situation. Buildings are crumbled. The airport that was just built by the Chinese 3 years earlier crumbled. Couldn't go inside of it. It was condemned. So here we are in the middle of the Caribbean, in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, with our plane pulled up right next to the Army Corps of Engineers, talking to the American GIs. Said, hey, can you watch the plane for us? We got all of our gear. We're standing out in the tarmac. We're roasting. Now, we're from Florida. We're used to the sun, but this is another level of sun. So the only place we could find a little bit of shade is this elevator room that used to take you up to the terminal from the tarmac. It's what the employees used to use. The terminal is condemned. Nobody's using this, so we're just sitting in this room. Well, they've got this calypso band that's there to entertain the plane that comes in and drops off people from the commercial. They pull the stairs up, people come off the plane, they got this drum line going, and then as soon as the last person gets off the plane, they pack up their drums, and guess what? They come and they sit with us in this room. It's a little awkward. We don't speak Creole. It's just my son and I, 2 white boys, a bunch of Haitians, like 8 of them. It's tight. I mean, it's intimate. It's a little weird, like you're trying to avoid touching each other's feet when you're kind of sitting on the floor against the wall. So my son breaks out this Rubik's Cube. does this, kind of shifts it around a little bit, hands it to one of the guys. So they're like, oh, yeah, hey, do it, you know. So they pass it around. They're trying to solve the Rubik's Cube. A few minutes goes by. My son puts out his hand. So the guy gives it back. My son takes off a sweatshirt that he had in his book bag, Perry the Platypus. That gives you an idea how long ago this was, if you had kids back then. He ties it around his head, and he's blindfolded. And he starts doing this. In less than 2 minutes, he solves the Rubik's Cube. How did he do it? It turns out there's an algorithm. No matter how messed up your Rubik's Cube is, if you follow these same 8 steps and do it, I figured it 64 times in a row or whatever the rule is, he just counted and was able to solve the Rubik's Cube. Now, the funny thing is they believe in voodoo. And they freaked out. I mean, I didn't know if they were going to sacrifice us or share their sacrificed chicken. They shared the chicken. So we were in good shape. And then he brought out the cards and David Blaine type stuff. It was a really cool experience. But what I learned from that experience is if you have a good process, it doesn't matter how messed up things are. If people follow it, you're going to probably get a good outcome. So this is our system. We call it the stack. This is how we built our company. It's pretty straightforward. We ran an EOS company, Entrepreneurial Operating System. If you haven't read the book Traction, read it. If you're the type of person who doesn't like documentaries or how-to manuals and you want the story of how to implement this system, read the book Get a Grip by Mike Payton. Excellent, excellent way to run your business. On top of that, we had a very strong relationship with Microsoft. We built on the Microsoft Dynamics platform, Dynamics 365, Office 365. We had the first cradle-to-grave software platform that handled everything in one software, period, all the way through. Tons of automation, really cool stuff. It helped us to control the cost of our employees and deliver really good customer service. On top of that, we have the total production system. That's lean principles. We're going to talk about that in a second. The Marine Corps way. My son goes in the Marines, and I'm like, I need to learn more about these Marines guys. So I was lucky enough to get picked to be on the Marine Corps Executive Forum, which any of you can do. That was really cool. Obviously, sales, SDG. Kelly Roofing Way was our process. Now, stop real quick. Your process is a bullet list. That's it. If you want to create a training manual behind that, these huge SOPs, fine. We used videos. We didn't do the SOPs. Videos were much easier. We kept them under 5 minutes. But your process is a bullet list, 3 to 7 words. That's it for each bullet. It's just doom, 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 doom. This is how a customer goes through our journey. Very easy to do. A lot of people get hung up on that. And then Art Unlimited did all of our marketing. From 2008 on, they still do our marketing today. And they helped us grow, even with all the new locations. That was our stack. It's pretty easy to visualize that. That's how we built the company. And then here's EOS, for those who haven't been introduced to it. Vision, where you're headed. Down the bottom, you've got traction. This is how we're going to get there. And then with that, you have the right people. They're in the right seats. You have some data component. Everybody has a number. It's reported on a scorecard weekly. You have quarterly rock meetings. These are the 90-day action items that we were talking about. You have an issue or opportunities. They all go onto a list. Some of them are on the parking lot, some of them you're working on right now, and then of course we talked about the processes, just a bullet list, really straightforward. The key is that everybody knows your processes. So I had the opportunity to go to Japan, spend a month, and get my Lean Executive Agile Six Sigma executive certification. I love the Japanese way. We were talking about it last night at dinner. Favorite country I've been to, I'm knocking on the door of 100 countries right now, and Japan is number one. It is a culture shock for those who haven't been there, but my God, it's a great society, and you will absolutely love going. So let's talk a few of their principles. The first one is Kaizen. Kaizen, as you can see, basically translates to change for good. The Japanese infused what we taught them after World War II. A guy named Edward Walter Deming, he created the census here in the United States. He was a Yale professor who actually created the United States Census. He went over and he was working with 2 other people. They were riding around on horseback because the bombs had blown out all the roads and there was an oil embargo, so they couldn't get gasoline anyways. So he rides around on horses and he's teaching groups of people, business leaders and whatnot, how to build their businesses back so we can get the Japanese economy going again after World War II. He taught them what we developed here in the United States in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, called the total production system. That is the lean, the original lean philosophy. They infused it with their Shinto religion. And the biggest part of that is Kaizen. It is a constant commitment to lifetime learning and improvement. It means everything is going to be a little bit better today than it was yesterday. And they truly take that to heart. It is their religion. Ondan. Ondan means stop to fix the problems. It actually translates to lighted sign, but it means stop to fix the problem. So if you can imagine you're on a factory line and there's this safety cord that every station has. And if you pull the safety cord, there's 4,000 employees that stop working. The whole line comes to an end and $1 million a minute in lost revenue occurs. And imagine we're installing steering columns into these vehicles, and we notice when we pull the steering column off the cart, there's like a nick on the steering wheel, like the leather wrap. You know, I felt it. You almost can't even see it, but you feel it. I'm like, oh, that's not good. If I was a customer, I wouldn't want to buy this car. Hang on a second. You pull the cord, the whole line stops, lights go off, sirens, everybody comes running. You're like, oh, I found a nick. If that happened here in the United States, you'd be fired. In Japan, you'd be promoted. Because we never want a defect to go to the customer. So you pull the on cord. If you have problems on your job sites, don't do more jobs. I was called in. There's a friend of mine who works for Owens Corning, and I'm traveling around the country working with Owens Corning Contractors. He said, I've got this guy in the Northeast. He's doing an incredible job. His name is Vish. Super, super smart. I mean, like one of the smartest people I've ever met, this kid. It's incredible. But he's like so smart, he's dumb. You know what I mean? There's like so intellectually smart that the street smarts kind of passed him by. And he had this issue where he was selling a bunch of jobs. He was getting these jobs done. They had problems with production, and he just kept doing more jobs. So I said, stop, pull the on cord. I want you to schedule, he had 9 customers that wouldn't pay. For him in his size company, that's a big deal. Okay, don't laugh. For him, that was a really big deal, that he had 9 customers that weren't paying. I said, don't do any more jobs. I want you to take your production team, your production manager, and you, schedule an appointment each day with each of those customers, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Take the whole crew back, and whatever the problem is, you fix it. He spent 1 week, no production. He collected 8 of the 9 checks. And then, boom, off to the races they go. Because the subs know, not going to get away with this crap, and the operations manager grew a spine and knew what to look for. Pull the on. Next is Ginchi Genbutsu. It means go see for yourself. The Japanese would never, ever make a decision about the future of the company without getting everybody involved. It's called nemawashi. It's also on the list, but I'm going to combine these two together. Nemawashi means consensus. I'm going to build consensus amongst the group. More importantly, Genchi Genbutsu means let's go see where the issue is occurring, and let's ask why 5 times. Let's get to the root cause of the problem. Let's not just throw a pill at it and hope that the symptoms make the problem go away. So take your team and go to job sites, your leadership team. Don't have all your meetings in a conference room. Take them to the job site and get ready to write. And here's what I want you to say. If somebody says, no, I think we're doing pretty good, or I don't really have any issues right now, I want you to ask them, so everything's perfect. There's nothing we can improve on, and let them just diarrhea at the mouth. When you go to job sites, you talk to your employees, you talk to your customers, you're on a fact-finding mission, just start writing stuff down. We're not fixing anything, we're just writing it down. Those will later go to your issues list. You'll prioritize, pick them off the issue list when it's time, solve them, and it'll serve you well. Next one I want to talk about is 5S, sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain. Everything has a place, everything's in its place. Be organized, be clean, be methodical. We had these trailers that stored all of our materials in them. And one of the things I'd love to do on the Friday safety meeting is go and look in the back of each one of those trailers. And I just had to poke my head around the corner and I'd know if something was out of place or missing. We had a stenciled template spray painted on the walls if we were supposed to have a mangueta, hose, right? A power line, a pala, shovel. All of these things were all labeled in English and in Spanish because the majority of our workforce is Latino. And you could easily see if something was wrong. If something was broken, we took caution tape, tied it up, boom, that's our lockout, tag out. We need a replacement. Very easy to see. Next, talk time. Talk time means leveling out the workflow. I had 19,200 requests for estimates, couldn't handle it. That's not good. So you either have to ramp up the other division or you have to slow down the front. It's one or the other. Because you have about a 2 to 4 week window, depending on the type of jobs that you're doing. If it's repairs, it's a little lower. If it's bigger projects, you can extend it. But 2 to 4 weeks on average. If you're less than 2 weeks out, it's probably hard to get those jobs ready, and you probably don't have enough work in your pipeline to be consistent. If it's more than 4 weeks out, customers aren't going to wait for you. They're going to find somebody else. So you need to do what you can to keep that workload level as much as possible. Oops. Sorry about that. The last one is muda. Muda means waste. And there's 13 different types of waste that the Japanese talk about. We can obviously talk about the obvious. The one I want to talk about is human talent. A lot of times we hire good people and we don't listen to them. And in Japan, that is disrespectful, and you would never, ever consider doing that. So I can go on and on about Japan all day, but I'm going to go ahead and skip on. And if your team was organized and your process followed, if this plays, this is what it could look. Oh, it wouldn't play. Is there a way to play it? If not, I can just describe what's going on. No worries. This is a pit crew for Formula One. They set the record. This is the Red Bull pit crew. Car comes in, they change all 4 tires and a full tank of gas in less than 2 seconds. And it's amazing to see everybody standing in position and waiting for the car to arrive. This is your team. All of a sudden, the call comes in. I need an estimate. Boom, they jump into action, they win the job's logged in, the permits are pulled, materials are on the job site, the crew knocks out the job, you get paid, and boom, customer goes on with their day, comes right back around, second car comes into the pit, and they do it again. That's your customer going into your managed repair program. So, really good visual. Sorry, it didn't work. When you think about leadership, at least for me, I think about what it would take to convince someone to charge into war knowing that there's a high likelihood they would lose their life. Like that's amazing to be able to instill in someone that level of commitment. That's real leadership. So when I look to becoming a better leader, I said, well, let me look at who the good leaders are on the warfighting front. And for those of you who haven't read it, Jocko Willink wrote a great book with Leif Babin called Extreme Ownership. His second book, The Dichotomy of Leadership, I personally think is better, but you kind of have to read the first one to read the second one. It's a fun read. It's a really cool read. It's very dynamic and graphic, and he gets right to the point, and he teaches us exactly what we need to know and how to apply it to business. I love it. But I took 8 of his core principles here. Cover and move, cover for each other, pretty straightforward. Keep things simple. We talked about that in the processes. Prioritize and execute, lowest hanging fruit every 90 days. Decentralize command. Let your people make the decision. Don't make everything go through you. You give them the accountability to make good decisions and the responsibility to be on top of them. And man, people will come through for you. No bad teams, only bad leaders. There's a story about the boat team captains, and he took the best crew leader and replaced it with the worst crew leader. And the teams went with the leader. The worst performing crew became the best performing crew, and the best performing crew became the worst performing crew because he changed the leader. So if you've got some crews out there that aren't equally performing, it's the leader. Commander's intent. If I try to script every single job and everything that's going to happen, it's going to be a failure because we have so many variables in our industry. There's so much we can't control. Deliveries don't show up on time. There's weather delays, employees issues, all that kind of stuff. But if you have a commander's intent, listen, we got to get this job done by Friday, and I want it done right, no problems. We don't have time for callbacks, so do it and get it done right, whatever it takes. That's it. Let the team go and execute. Leading up and down the chain of command. People who aren't the leader of the organization have a responsibility to give the leader all the information necessary to make good decisions, meaning to make the decision that you want. And all you have to do is serve it up. Just come up with your facts, get them to understand where you're coming from, give them the proof, and their decision will be your decision. And then the last one is everyone has a role to play. It's like football. You know, sometimes we need the big kids on the line, sometimes we need the tall kids, sometimes we need the fast kids, right? Every business, all these different talents, they all come together to make a really dynamic organization. So it is not one size fits all in business. My son goes to the Marines, and I got to learn a little bit about the Marine Corps. What I love about the Marines is they're the smallest fighting force, but they also have, if you will, their own Army, their own Navy, their own Air Force, and they can be deployed anywhere in the world in less than 24 hours with a battalion-sized force. They don't need a declaration of war to be deployed. President Trump could say, hey, I don't like Nicaragua anymore, go take them out, and nobody can do anything about it. They're his fighting force. They guard all of the embassies, the White House, and Camp David. And they have less members than the Coast Guard. They have a lower operating budget than the Coast Guard. Now, if you translate to business, like That's lethal. Smaller fighting force, lower budget, but effective, maybe even more effective than some of the much bigger branches. That's pretty cool. And why do they do that? Well, I saw it firsthand, what they did to my son. First of all, their boot camp, unlike most organizations, instead of 8 weeks, it's 13 weeks. And it's not until the very, very end, the last day of boot camp, that you actually get your Eagle, Globe, and Anchor and become a Marine. That's a huge thing. How long do you spend training your employees? Ours was 12 weeks for our sales reps before they ever ran a lead by themselves. 12 weeks. It's a big commitment. It's not a huge deal. Get them to sign an agreement. They'll pay you back if they leave before 2 years. No problem. They're able to do more with less because they put in the training. They have this loyalty. They have this focus. Everybody is hyper-focused on a position. That's what they're trained for, and they do really, really well, and they're able to make decisions on their own. Great organization to model after. The flywheel effect. This is a Jim Collins thing for those who've read the book Good to Great. Imagine I'm the leader of the organization, and I say, listen, we're really good at roofing. We're going to build an amazing roofing company to where we're going to be the best roofing company in the country. And I get everybody out of their roles and up here, and I've got this huge flywheel. See the size of that wheel? That's an iron ore truck in the northern Minnesota Iron Range, where my marketing team is. She took us into the mines, and that's me standing in front of one of those tires that are on one of those big dump trucks. That thing weighs probably about 10 tons, just that one tire. Imagine how difficult that would be for us to get that thing moving. That's what it's like when you start building a business. You get everyone behind it to start pushing this wheel. Eventually, people can kind of go off into their roles, and you might need them to come back maybe once a week or once a month just to kind of give it a little heave, and this thing will continue to roll, and maybe even pick up steam and speed. Now imagine being the visionary, being a type A personality, being a maniac or Tasmanian devil or whatever you want to call the leader of your organization, because I know they like to come back from conferences like this. They tear through the office. We're going to change this. We got to do this right now. Everyone's like, what the hell just happened? That's how we are. A lot of laughs because you know that's how we are. Imagine I say, you know what? We're really good at roofing, but I bet you we can build houses. So now everybody's got to leave their role almost completely, get in front of this wheel, slow it down to a stop, turn it, and then get behind it and go in a different direction. You would lose years of possibility. You would lose money. You would lose time. You're really good at what you do. Stick with that and be the best at it. A river cuts through rocks not because of power, but because of persistence. I didn't become retired because I won one big job. Or I was able to screw over a customer and charge a little bit extra, or the insurance company, or whatever games people like to play. It was actually much more nuanced than that, and actually more easy. I just showed up every Tuesday morning for our ELTL 10. I showed up every Friday for our safety meeting with the guys. The boring things is what actually makes the difference. Just little tiny incremental improvements every day, week, quarter, year. So let's talk about some operational management. I found that our best sales reps come immediately out of college, have played a collegiate sport, either team or individual, and have this commitment to improving themselves. They are used to winning, they love competition, they do a really good job in that, and they're used to training before they go and play the game. We train 3 days a week. If you were in our customer service team, you would come from the hospitality industry. You were a waiter, waitress, a maitre d', front desk at a hotel. Those type of people are used to handling customer complaints. They understand phone presence, that type of stuff. If you were a supervisor, you came from one of our repair crews to where you got to where I was, where your back, your knees, and your ankles just don't hold up anymore. You could do it, but you're really close to the end. When you come off the roof full time or out of the attic or whatever trade you happen to be in, and you get the opportunity to lead others, you become a mentor and a trainer. And that's what we want. We want our supervisors to constantly be mentoring and coaching and training our crews. You know where the problems are because you fixed them for years, so you know how to avoid them. They make great supervisors. You might have to teach them English, you might have to teach them how to use a computer, but that's easy compared to teaching someone 45 years of experience in whatever trade they're in. And then crews. Crew members find the best crew members. A lot of times they're family and they work for another company. You're like, what? He's been working for another company for 5 years. You didn't tell me anything about it? Hey, we need another crew. Come on, bring them in. That type of stuff. I would hire a crew leader and never the crew. I don't play with that dynamic. Working with someone on a daily basis, it's like picking their wife. You don't do that. It's not going to work, right? So you let them find their own crew members. Now, if we've got really good crew members and a bad leader, I'm going to train up that leader. But I don't play with the dynamics in the crew. Here's the one rule that's not listed on this slide that I want to talk about. We will never hire you if you've done sales at another roofing company. Period. Hard, fast rule. It's too hard to break bad habits. We want fresh blood. If you're in my office, you will not have worked for another roofing company. I don't care if you're in accounting, you will not have done it. The only place we hire experience is if you're actually in the field on the roof, and we want you to work for everyone. It's like this two huge ends of the spectrum, huge dichotomy. We want all the experience we can find. As a matter of fact, we want you to have as many bad experiences as possible. In other words, crews that you worked really hard, or companies you worked really hard for and they didn't pay you. Because then when you come to us and we give you a bonus program, a 401k, health insurance, we pay every single Friday and we never skip a beat, you're like, okay, this is finally my home. It's a great place to be. Training. I told you we put a lot of effort into training. How we do it, we have an LMS system. Great. STG has theirs for sales side of things. We have our own for everything else. And whatever the position is, we let the people in those positions just simply record what they do in a video. If you're on a computer, it's a screen session. Just fire up a Zoom. Nobody has to be on it. It's just one person. Record it. Boom. There's your video. And we used a system called Talent LMS outside of Ryan's system. One other thing I want to put in there is don't overcompensate it. You heard it with Luke's presentation. You don't need to pay top dollar all the time. Sometimes you do, and I encourage you to. I want you to pay people what they're worth. But if you only pay and you don't recognize the hard work that people are putting in, or you don't give them an opportunity for advancement, they're going to leave no matter how much you pay. So you really need to hit the trifecta if you want to keep the top talent. I'm an open book company. We shared our numbers because in our industry, we have millions of dollars go through our fingers every year. And it's kind of a mind game because you think you have more money to play with than you actually do. At the end, in the roofing industry, according to the National Roofing Contractor Association, with 13,000 roofing companies surveyed, the average net profit was 3.8%. The average, meaning half of them were less than that. 3.8. That's not a lot of money. So you need to be hyper-focused on being frugal. And that's a weird thing when you look at your bank account and you got $500,000 cash sitting in there. To be worrying about turning lights off when you leave an office. But that's the way we need to be. One more thing, Ken Blanchard writes a great book called 1 Minute Manager. If you haven't read that, it's like maybe 2 or 3 toilet sittings. That's the way I determine how long it takes to get things done. You have to leave the phone outside the bathroom. Nothing's going to get done if you bring the phone in there with you. But that's a really easy book to read. I love that one. It's an effective way to manage and work with people. He talks about the 1 minute reprimand, the 1 minute praise. It's just so easy to follow. It's a great way to think about it. Okay, so productivity. I'm cherry picking some of the top things that I talk about in my other presentations. Too often we get distracted with other people's emergencies. You have to have the discipline to say, go figure it out. There's a great book by Michael Asheroff. It's called It's Your Ship. He takes the worst performing boat in the Navy, and in 1 year he makes it the best performing boat in the Navy. And one of the things he did in that, he did 3 main changes that he made to the crew, is he said, I intend to. And what he meant by that is, there are people in the crew that do a job every day. And although he's the captain, and yes, he's been trained on all of the different areas of the boat, he doesn't do it every day, so he doesn't know it as intimately as someone who does. And if there's a problem or a suggestion or an opportunity for improvement, he was basically saying, listen, You don't need to get my permission all the time. I'm the captain, so you do have to run it by me, but I'm not going to give you the answer. I want you to come to me and say, Captain, here's the problem. Here's what I think we should do for this solution. And if I listen to it and you make a strong case, I'm just going to say, very well. But the way it starts is, Captain, here's a problem. I intend to do whatever the potential solution is. And it turned the boat around. It's really amazing. There's 2 other things in there, but that was the key one. And if you want a good read, that's a good read as well. But this whole thing with productive time, like we could do a much, much better job focusing on what's important. And what's important is why we work. Family, health, heard it this morning, right? That has to be part of our routine. We cannot sacrifice ourselves. We can't sacrifice the relationships with the people that we love so that we can build this business. Yes, I know in the beginning you have to beg, steal, borrow. You do whatever you have to build the business, yes, but you have to be able to do it all. Time management, if you're really good at it, that can open up a lot of doors. For instance, who practices zero inbox? Love it, love you. Yes, another Microsoft thing. Basically what that means is if I see somebody's phone and I see a bunch of badge notifications, I'm like, clear out your notifications, be on top of all of your communications. At the end of the day, when you close out your phone, or you put your phone down, you're gonna spend time with family or yourself, there should be 0 emails in your inbox. 0. There are only 3 things that an email does for you. 1, it's information only or it's spam. Okay, I got it, or it's out of here. Boom, delete. I got it. Number 2, it's something I need to work on, but I don't need to work on it today. Drop it in a folder. To do, waiting on, orders, whatever. And the last one is, actually this one is an emergency, I gotta work on this today. And it stays in the inbox until the end of the day where you get a chance to knock it out, and then it's gone. So when you shut your phone down, your computer, 0 inbox. You wake up the next day fresh. Where did I get that from? A guy named Wayne Huizenga. For those who don't know, he owned the Miami Dolphins. He started Nations Rent. He started AutoNation. He started a bunch of businesses. A really interesting guy. He lives in my neighborhood. Or he did up until he passed away. On production, I'm running out of time, so I don't have time to go through all of these, but I wanted to, let me see if I can pull 1 or 2 out. Load your jobs ahead of time so you have all kinds of flexibility. We talked about reviews yesterday. That was great presentation. Give your team the opportunity to sell add-ons. Anyone in our organization has the chance to get commission. Anyone. Supervisors, people in the office. If the sales rep teed it up and they presented it, they get to split the commission. But everyone gets commission. And by the way, since we're on pay and we're in Texas, no more of this 10/50 crap, okay, please? All you're doing is breeding your future competition. In every market where I see the 10/50 pay, meaning 10% on the gross, 50% split profit, I see, when I go into the room, everyone has worked for someone else in that room. All you're doing is teaching the next generation how to run a business, and it doesn't really help anyone because those markets are severely depressed on pricing and on profitability. And the people that go out on their own don't make any more money than if they stayed with the original company and just were a stellar salesperson. So pay them appropriately, but I don't agree with the whole splitting profit. I go to the barista here this morning to get my hot tea. She's not splitting the profit with the hotel or with Starbucks. And it's ridiculous that we would do the same. Firewalls. Sales is a liability until the job is done and it's paid. And I know it's not a popular thing to say, but it's the truth. When you get a deposit, that is not revenue. That goes into a separate account on your chart called job deposits, and it is a liability. Because sales can screw up. We're all human. We make mistakes, no problem. You need someone to take that sale before it goes into production and say, yes, the measurements are right, yes, the pricing's right, yes, we can do it and be profitable. And sign off and say, this has been reviewed, we're good. The 72-hour right of rescission works for customers, but it also works for contractors. It's a two-way street. You've got 3 days from when that contract is signed to reject that contract. If you want to put one more layer of protection in there, right underneath the authorized signature sign, where the company signs one side, the customer signs the other, under the company side, you put upon manager approval. Done. Holds up in every court. Make sure you're not accepting crap. If I come up to you and I go to hand you a pile of crap, you can say, I ain't taking that. That's the way operations needs to be. And it's all we're doing is making sales better. That's all we're doing. We're protecting the company, protecting profitability. If I don't have profit, I can't replace trucks. Sorry, I'm going into my financial freedom thing here, but let's think about that. Yes, okay, fine, you get to expense your new truck, the King Ranch $100,000, roofer Lamborghini. Yeah, okay. Good for you, right? Section 179D, accelerated depreciation. Because the truck's over 8,000 pounds, you get to expense it in the same year. Awesome. You don't have to pay taxes on it, because I guess all they're doing is lighting that money on fire anyways. But you still needed profit to buy it in the first place. You can't expense something that there's no profit on. The IRS won't let you. If you sit in a person's living room and you promise them you're going to be here in 10 years to stand behind the guarantee that you made, you got to be profitable, or else you won't be in business to stand behind that promise. So we have to be profitable. Today, there are some headwinds. You hear the news, tariffs, and people are like freaking out because of the economy and the interest rates, and we've got this huge debt and it needs to be refinanced, and what's happening to our customers because the debt-to-income ratio is higher than it's ever been in the history of the country. $1.2 trillion in credit card debt just with consumers right now. $16 trillion if you add in auto loans. I mean, it's just insane. Yes, I get it. I went through 5 recessions in my career. 9 hurricanes. 9 major hurricanes means Cat 3 or more. So I went the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. They were just problems we had to solve. That's all this is. Ignore the news. You don't have to get freaked out about it. The problem comes up, boom, you solve it. See what you see. It's a little biblical term, but it basically means, how do you feel? Do you feel like the world is ending? No, so don't listen to that. There is amazing opportunity. 2 shoe salesmen go to Africa. First shoe salesman gets off the plane, looks around, notices nobody wears shoes. Calls back to his company and says, hey, listen, there's no way we're going to open up a branch here in Africa. Nobody wears shoes. Forget it. I'm coming home. Second shoe salesman gets off the plane, looks around, notices nobody's wearing shoes, says, send me everything you got. Nobody's wearing shoes. It's all about perception. You got the opportunity to make something great. I love this industry. So all about perception. Anyways, I want to thank you for your time, and I'll be around if you got any questions. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Ken, everybody.